Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, and today we're here with Remy and Mark Jacobson, who are the co-founders of RealT, which is a tokenized real estate solution. A very, very cool project. I've been using it for quite some time and earning rent via owning these RealT tokens, but we'll get into all of that. Just before that, thank you both for coming on the show. And before we get into everything, could you just start off by each telling us a little bit about yourselves?
Thank you very much for having us today. It's a pleasure to be here. Sure. Remy and I come from, we've been partners all our lives. We've been working together since Remy, Remy's my younger brother, so I have 10 years lead on him, but we have been always working together ever since. And we started from real estate. We come from real estate and actually developed real estate in Canada and Quebec. That's where we're from originally.
Okay.
We developed real estate for mostly multi-residential properties. We did a few commercial properties. We developed a private portfolio of a significant size, which we later sold around 2008. In anticipation of a crisis, which did happen, but not in Canada, as we all know. So this being said, we also do real estate in the US, from Miami to Detroit to Colorado and other states. And in 2008, when we sold a significant part of the Quebec portfolio, we took a few years to look at opportunities, and in 2011, we were in Miami, Remy and I, doing a real estate deal there, when we discovered this thing called Bitcoin, which was a very interesting thing and probably a scam, we thought. But then we read the, like most people, I guess, then we read the white paper and we found elegant answers to any doubts we could have. Everything was well addressed in very simple, very short paper, very well written. Even if you don't look at the formulas, just skip through, and it's a good read. So it answered us, and since we wanted to spend some time together outside of the sun, it was a good way to stay in the AC. So we decided to do our first miners with graphic cards. At the time, there were still graphic cards. So that's what we did. And we jumped into the Bitcoin space end of 2011, beginning 2012. We became miners, industrial miners in the US, amongst the first industrial miners. And then 2013, we created the first Bitcoin embassy in the world. It was located in Montreal on Boulevard Saint-Laurent. We dedicated one of our properties to the community. And it became a kind of Bitcoin hub. All the people doing Bitcoin had access to space to work, internet, food, everything free. It was just a good place to meet. We held meetups, we held the free classes, evangelized Bitcoin. We sent a team to the Senate. It was a good few years. The Bitcoin embassy closed in 2017 for reasons that are, I guess, obvious to everybody. Things have been doing pretty good, and motivation was on other projects or different lifestyles. So we did about anything and everything with blockchain, because then Bitcoin really became active in many things. And in 2007, except exchanges, we never did exchanges. And in 2017, 18, there was this craze of ICOs. This is where we did not participate. And that's when we kind of pulled out of the space. We did counsel a few people that came to us and wanted some advice on how to create ICOs. And it was just, there were big players there were institutional players, and basically we could not see a legal way of doing it with certainty. And these people were not startups. They were not trying to fund projects. They were trying to develop another part of their business, which means that they had too much to lose. So we kind of did nothing for a while in the space, continued our real estate. And then November 2018, Remy got a call. Remy?
I got a call from our lawyers, and they told us, look, there might be a possibility to join real estate and blockchain, without really realizing what they were saying at that time, that blockchain was not just tokenization, but finally they were a structure that had the legal component of being able to do it within the exemptions of the regulation in existence. So when we looked at it, Jean-Marc and I went through the whole legal framework for a few months with the lawyers, quite a few months. And at the end of the day, they gave their blessing saying the structure works, and RealT, the legal part, was born. But then the whole challenge on the technological part came. As easy as it sounds to tokenize real estate and distribute rent at the time daily, and now with the migration to L2, we're going back to daily. But it sounds very easy in principle, but the whole infrastructure was quite something to develop, especially early on, and not really really underestimating what DeFi would do to RealT and how it would change the interaction of our developments going forward. So RealT has been a brainchild of Jean-Marc and I for quite a while, where regulation came to a point in 2019 where we were able to come to realize on this vision.
So to bounce back on what Remy just said, once that we had that lawyer's phone call that basically explained to us that it was that an LLC could be tokenized in the US and that would be recognized by the courts. And that's the issue, because before a lot of people tried to tokenize real estate. And the way they did it was they had a token and they had the real estate, and there was a contract between the token holders and the real estate holders. And well, that works if there's never any problem. That's good.
And to be honest, it's much easier to do it on Excel than on a blockchain if you do it that way.
Well, yes, but the idea, it's true. But the concept, the problem was that if you contest that title of ownership, if you litigate whatever, you don't have title. You don't really have a security on the ownership. So we didn't want to do it that way. But when our lawyer told us that it was recognized by the courts, that changed everything. We jumped on it. So that was in November 2018. And we incorporated RealT on February 2019. During all these months, we were looking at the legals on how to do it, whether it was really possible. From February 19 to July, August, we bought a property, we renovated it, we stabilized it, and we did it as a proof of concept. We wanted it to be our own property to begin with, so that we would be sure that we'd have no problems in case there are issues. So we bought a small property, we did some good work on it, and a good yield before we put it on the platform. And at first, towards May, June, July, it was just friends and family. We're just trying it out, see what was happening with it. It was a very basic platform back then. There was DeFi, was still a concept. We all felt that it was coming. The stones, the building blocks were already there, but it was not yet a thing. And we had some traction, and it was we were wondering how to do the marketing and what to present. It was not an easy concept for people to wrap their mind around. Some people have tried before, and to be quite frank, I believe that all failed. They do digitalize or tokenize, they call tokenized real estate, but what they do really is digitalize a title of ownership. And the digitalization is one thing. Tokenization, as we understand it, Remy and I, is another. Tokenization allows for the token to have a value just by being a token, and the value is derived from decentralized finance. And that's how we really see it. If your token cannot be used in DeFi, then all you did is digitalize your title. That's all you did. And it's a good first step. I'm not contesting that. It's a good, important first step, but it is not full tokenization. So in November, so we started selling and we had more and more sales. It was a good thing. People were interested in trying it out. The token price we kept very low, always. The idea was to get a lot of small investors rather than one big, just to create velocity of the token, liquidity, and to have a market going. And in November 2018, we put some tokens on Uniswap. And that created a whole different level of legal issues that we had to take care of and cater to, and that we had to restrict the U.S. Investors from using it, etc. But it also opened a whole vision of what could be done with RealT, with the RealT tokens.
Yeah,
and that's
and
things happened.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, the distinction you point out, the difference between RealT and other projects, because when I originally got into RealT, I tried looking at every other solution, and a lot of times what I found was they were crowd-funded real estate projects where you wouldn't actually get into the project or have any ownership until everyone has bought a piece of it and then they finally buy the property. Whereas you guys did it the other way, where you acquired the property and then you sold the ownership and for people to get in. And I think that's a very, very powerful difference and important distinction, because the other one, you're putting money in and you're waiting on a promise, whereas with yours, you're actually getting the actual ownership and the product right away. And I think that's a very, very important distinction. So just for people who have never heard of RealT or tokenized assets, can you just briefly break down exactly what it is?
Sure. Basically, it's finding a way to put assets, in our case, real estate, on the blockchain. And the token, it's called tokenization. The token that exists on the blockchain is an expression, a direct expression of that ownership. So by owning a token, you own a fractionalized part of the asset that it expresses. The fact that it exists on the blockchain makes it very secure. The title ownership cannot be can be checked on the blockchain publicly, and cannot be forged. And it has a number of advantages. Let's see, what else can we say about what it is to be tokenized? It gives more liquidity. It allows you to participate in an asset class that would have been very illiquid and with a very big barrier to entry. All this disappears with tokenization if you do it in a certain way, like RealT did. You mentioned very quickly, you mentioned that the other projects were promises where you just invest, and if I'm not mistaken, the ones you're referring to are very large projects. Some of them were $100 million or 300 million, and even one with 600 million pounds. Well, those are geared towards mostly institutional investors. Now, my take on it is that as of today, and things will change, within 3 to 5 years, institutions will be ready. But as of today, if you're a very large investor, if you're going to invest in real estate at that level, you really want the stamp of the notary, you really want the certificates, you really want to have the traditional title. However, the way we did it is we needed to prove that the concept works. We needed to prove that the market works. We needed to show it. And the idea was to start with a small property with a good yield and allow people to come in with a $50 token. 50, that's it. And then what's your risk? What do you risk? $50 you pay to see. You invest, and then you see it works. You see the title deeds on the website. You see that you receive rent, and you do receive it not in a token that represents something. No, in USDC, that's US dollars. You do receive it in your wallet. So all of a sudden you understand that the concept works. And a few months later, you're able to sell it if you wanted to, keep the income you had earned on a daily basis, then weekly, and we're going back to daily, as Remy said, but keep your income and sell your token if you wanted. And then secondary markets appeared for non-US residents. That is a powerful proposition. And that's what tokenization allows you to do. You have no barrier to entry. You can buy small amounts, as small or as big as you want. You have liquidity, and you have a community that is created. And with everything that is happening in DeFi, your token becomes even more powerful. And I use the word powerful on purpose. All of a sudden, your token can be staked. You can use it as collateral. You can place it you can use compound to earn interest on your on what you have earned.
And imagine a collateral where you don't have to worry at 3 a.m. that there is a flash crash on the market whatsoever. You have quite some stability with this collateral.
You have a collateral that doesn't necessarily move with the market. It stays stable. So stability in real estate is important. You have your growth regularly, and in a number of years, your token is evaluated every year based on a independent evaluator that evaluates the property, and that will be the new value of your token, divided the value by the number of tokens outstanding, which is a fixed amount, and that's the value. What we need to underline here, because maybe it was not obvious to the listeners, is that every property has its own ERC20 token. It's not one token for the RealToken, for the RealT token that represents a fund of properties. You can choose which token you want. You can choose which property you decide to invest in. Maybe you don't like single family residences. Maybe you only want multi-family residences. Maybe you don't like Detroit and you want New York. Maybe you like New York and you want Chicago. And you can choose. And you see the income independently from each one of them. In the future, thanks to DeFi as well, we will be able to create, potentially, we will see meta tokens that represent an asset class, maybe commercial real estate. And then you would have many different properties that are just commercial real estate out of the ones that you have chosen, or multifamily or single family or a city. And even further down the road, in a number of years, when all this will have been more worked on and developed, and DeFi will have become more powerful, and we will be able to leverage the DApps even more, you could go long on a city and short on another. I mean, that's years away, but you can see it coming. So tokenization is a very powerful concept. It's on its way to becoming reliable and strong, but it is still very much a development project. It's really the bleeding edge of technology currently. Don't forget, we're speaking about an industry that has barely changed its ways of transacting in hundreds of years. So it's an upheaval that will take time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got in pretty early, and I've tracked my rent ever since the beginning, and it has been consistent and reliable. So definitely really solid. And I'm testing out selling right now, but only because I'm going into Bitcoin, and then I'm coming back to RealT after, because I really like what you guys are doing, and I want to build that passive income. But yeah, and I also think it's great that you have the individual tokens so that you can diversify location and kind of just have more options for where you actually want to invest in. So that's really, really powerful as well. So in terms of where you're investing, is this just going to be the US for now? Is that the main focus, or where do you intend to take this?
So Remy?
We like the US, obviously, for logistical reasons and because it's a market that we know well. We know the Canadian market rather well as well, and we are experiencing the European market. RealT has the potential to be worldwide, um, depending on regulation. We are working now to open up Europe, and the biggest worry that we have with Europe is the difference in cap rate. Your intrinsic value of your property will appreciate more in a European country over time, and that's not necessarily true in every city, but the cap rates in Europe are extremely low, which doesn't make it as an attractive as a product than U.S. Income housing. Jean-Marc?
I'd like to add, yes, I'd like to add that so there are ways. We've been very active in tokenizing in Europe, trying to, and we do want to tokenize properties. As Remy said, we love the US, absolutely, and we will always try to grow in the US, different cities and different states. We want to do other countries. We found ways to do it. There are legal ways, legal provisions in France, in Germany, in Portugal, in Spain, and Italy to do it. But if you have to go through every step of that the regulations, current regulations imposes, the economical viability of your token is questionable. The taxation are high, and there are ways to optimize your taxation legally and normally that are perfectly acceptable legally. But in that case, you remove your ownership, your direct ownership to the real estate. And that has advantages for the bottom end, yes, but it makes it more complex when you have a title, when you have a token that's supposed to represent ownership of an entity that owns one property. So we're working on ways. We found some, they're costly. That's the issue we have. So we're working with our lawyers and with some creative people to that know the regulators and can talk to them to see how we could grow in various countries. And then we will propose those properties to the world. We have to go step by step. Everybody complains about regulators, Scott.
Yeah.
Put yourself in their positions. It's not easy. It's really not easy what they're doing. DeFi is really not intuitive, mostly not for people that have been formatted a certain way. The regulations exist for a reason. There have been abuses in the past, and there has been some bad actors. And all of a sudden, some people come up and say, oh, we have this new way of doing things. It's called DeFi, and we can do whatever we want. No, you can't actually. So they don't have it all that easy. And on the other hand, they don't want to block innovation as well. No country really wants to block innovation. So they are in between a stone and a hammer, where they have to make sure that things are are moving ahead, but that it's being done right. And of course, they want to promote their local actors. They will encourage the local companies first, which is normal. I think they all do that. So I can understand the challenges there, but the challenges are real, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I was interested in is when I originally did the review of RealT, I didn't realize that a lot of my US viewers were commenting saying that they weren't able to invest because they weren't accredited investors. So what is the status there? Is that ever going to change? Is that just like a regulation thing?
So it is a regulation thing, and it's something that could change in time as accredited investors requirement is getting easier and easier as new regulation. There is different filing that we could do to open it up to non-accredited investors. But the truth is the limitation that the token would have to do to interact within DeFi for American investors just doesn't make it as sexy and doesn't give it the same power as a RealT token for a non-US investor.
We can really do the digitalization I was speaking about fractionalization of a property in the US. That's very doable. But using a token, and we're very sad about that. We really would like to be able to be more innovative and to service the US investors that are interested in it. But no, we can't. And is it going to change? Like Remy says, we're hopeful. And also, as we grow and as we become more, we have a longer track record. Don't forget, we're a very new company. We started activities in February, incorporated in February 2019 only. So we need to have a number of years, like 3 years minimum. And maybe then we can perhaps file for some, with the SEC to get permission to have a Reg A. But then you get into a different issue, which is the cost proposition. Because all of a sudden, if you have to file for a Reg A for every property, don't forget, we don't do one fund, we do one property. Then that property needs to be of a certain size in order to justify the cost of the filing. So you get into these mechanics. By tokenizing, the proposition that RealT has of tokenizing a property is very simple. But when you look into it, you're dealing with real estate, so all the laws and the business that is attached to that. You're dealing with the technology, obviously, and mostly in the time of DeFi, it is always changing at a very quick pace. There are times at RealT, Scott, when we were developing for months something, and then all of a sudden we realized, oh, wait a second, this guy just came up with this and it does everything we wanted and even more. So we scrapped the work we did and we just use the app, and that's the reality of it. So we have the technology, and then we have securities laws to deal with as well, because our token is very much a security token. Don't forget, we distribute rent under the form of dividends. So there are all these aspects that have to come together from a regulatory point of view, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
So how did RealT actually get its name? And then what was the motivation behind starting it originally?
RealT was a logical name for us. RealToken, something real that is behind a token. And that's where the name came from.
There's something real behind a token, and it's RealT. It's a cool name. And we're realticians, all of us.
Realticians, that's good. That's great. So how many properties do you intend to acquire? Is there a goal, or is it just kind of like as opportunities come up, then you go after them? And then what is the acquisition and tokenization process like? So
sky is the limit for the number of properties that we want to acquire. There is no limit. So we're looking per deal. The only restriction we have is the due diligence that we have to do on each properties and make sure that they fit the requirement that we would want if we were to own the property 100% for us.
As you said, Scott, you saw that the rental income was solid. That requires a lot of work before we put it on the platform or while during the due diligence period. It comes from years of experience. We buy income producing properties, but it's a business in its own. It requires a certain know-how. And the fact that the tenants have been paying is it's not happenstance. It's work that went behind it. So the due diligence aspect is what's slowing us down. The requirements that we have per house, is slowing us down, and the fact that currently we insist on having high yield producing properties makes it a very difficult proposition. As long as we find such deals, there's no limit to the number of deals that we want to do. But then the real estate market is a market, and there are times when you have a lot of opportunities in an area, and in that case you have to be a glutton. Just take every opportunity that you can see. That's how we feel it. That's how we do it. And there are times when you must know how to say, well, you know what, I'm going to wait a little bit. People say in real estate, location, location, location. You've heard it, Scott, I'm sure. And I agree with that, obviously. But there's another factor, timing. timing is as important as location. If you're a real estate expert, it doesn't matter really when you buy. If you buy at the top of the market, just hold tight. You're an expert. You would know how to manage it. You're going to be extremely efficient in every one of your decisions, and you'll just wait until the next time it peaks back up. But if you're not an expert and you buy and you have to watch it on a daily basis, if you buy at the peak, the best case scenario is just you just have a small income for a number of years. The idea is buy when there's a crisis, like after 2008 up to all the way to 2012. Buy when a city is in trouble or comes out just recently out of trouble, like Detroit did. And then you can become a glutton. You have high yields. And in addition, the underlying asset has a good chance of increasing in value over the next 5 to 10 years. So taking advantage of those fluctuations in the market is also one aspect that could restrict our propositions on RealT, or on the contrary, feed them. As I said, when there's a good opportunity in an area, you have to be a glutton. Now, for the process of purchase and acquisitions and tokenization, it's a process. You have to set up teams. You have to be to have the right people in the city where you want to be active. You must make sure that you have the management in place. Management is crucial. We spend a lot of time managing managers. Remy says yes because he's the one doing it. So right now he's like, you're talking, Jean-Marc, but I'm the one actually doing it. Yeah, that's true. So you have to have also the right agents or connections with large funds that own large portfolios that are interested in letting go some of their assets, with maybe the administration for the auctions. There are many ways to do it.
It sounds easy, but it is not easy. A lot of people think that buying a residential unit is just buying it and getting the check. And there is much more behind it. And I think that's what gives RealT strengths, is our experience in real estate as well as our background in blockchain, which we're able to bring to Friction 79 offerings up to now.
Well, soon 80. Yeah, soon 80.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys have been acquiring just a wealth of properties, and I see they sell out very, very quickly. So absolutely amazing job on your end.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of like liquidity for the tokens, you mentioned how you guys got it on Uniswap and everything. What does that process look like? And like, how liquid are these? Like, and are there a lot of people actually providing liquidity? What does that all look like?
So Uniswap started by being quite slow at the beginning because it was very much a novelty. Then we started to have some decent volume on our token, and we got hit like all the rest of the industry with the price of gas. So when you were transacting a token for $50 and you had to pay $113 in transaction fees, it didn't make it that sexy. Now that with L2 coming out and on XDAI, and your transaction fee is literally a penny, it becomes much more fun of what you can do with the equivalent of Uniswap on layer 2, until layer 1 becomes affordable again, of course. But you will see some very interesting solutions and options that we're going to be giving our tokens on L2 as soon as by the end of this month. You will see some very interesting DeFi integrations that will be able to be done with our tokens.
Currently, if you want to speak about liquidity, you have the Uniswap option or equivalent, or swap or whatever. So that works. And it doesn't work for US investors. It's even accredited account. But otherwise, for the rest of the world, they can use it. You have OTC transactions between users. of the same regulation. Reg S users can all exchange tokens.
Users.
We always know who the tokens are. We have a whitelist. You have OTC transactions that are possible. And well, there are some restrictions, by the way, that comes from regulations, but we monitor them on the blockchain. So at any given time, we know who has ownership of the token. That's a must. It's a security token. There's a whitelist process. There's a KYC process. That is unavoidable. It's real estate. So we're not full DeFi. We try to be as much DeFi as we can. And the third option, sorry, yes?
We're permission-based DeFi.
We're permission-based DeFi. Very well said. And the third option is you sell it back to us. You sell back your token to us. Now we had to put some limits on what we would buy back per week per token user, but otherwise just sell it to us, and we will buy it back from you. And that's it. Very simple. So you have 3 areas of being able to sell, and the liquidity that was a little bit stymied by the high cost of gas. By going to our L2 solution, this will disappear in a few days or weeks now. And I believe that the liquidity will be more than sufficient to satisfy everybody. So we're very excited about that. So yes, we have accelerated the purchase and sale of real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. So you mentioned that the payout process is undergoing several changes, and you guys are introducing XDAI into the system. So can you speak a little to that?
With the price of gas, we had to go and choose an L2 solution while we wait for the scale up of Ethereum. XDAI was the logical solution for us because you had to take in consideration only one variant instead of 2. So if you look at Binance Smart Chain, if you look at Polygon, which are great chains, great solutions, but you take in consideration the price of the BNB, and you take in consideration the price of the Poly token. Both of them went up by a couple of 100% in the last few weeks. Then you take in consideration the congestion of the network, which will raise the transaction cost. With XDAI, you only have to worry about the congestion of the network. Plus, with the number of transactions that is possible to be done on XDAI, I'm not too worried about this yet. And since it's pegged to the dollar, you're never going to find yourself paying 5-6 times the transaction cost because of congestion and because of the raise of the token. That was our choice for XDAI because it gives us a stability. And it gives us foreseeability of what the expenses are. And in real estate, it's very important.
Predictability and stability are very important for any business. Real estate as well in a very large amount, but proportion, but for any business, predictability and stability of costs is crucial. You pay for that. And in that case, in the case of XDAI, it was a win-win on all aspects. So that's why we chose XDAI. In addition, it has a good philosophy behind it. So we were pleased with that. And this transition is ongoing. It's always simple in theory. When you start doing it, you always have some surprises, some issues where you didn't think there would be. But at the end, the process was much easier than we feared that it could be. In spite of it's always the same. You always think that you're going to do it, this magnitude is going to take very long, and it doesn't. And then the detail that you thought you would do in 10 minutes, well, it takes you 5 days. This being said, so overall, the process is nearly done, and the rent is already being distributed on XDAI. And I think that the tokens will be distributed next week or the week after, Remy?
But within that time frame, by next week or by the end of next week or beginning of the following week, we'll start distributing the tokens and opening up liquidity pools as well on the DEX on XDAIs.
And that will change a lot of things, because then we will be building bridges and doing a lot of very interesting things. The roadmap is exciting. That's all I can say
Awesome,
right
awesome.
now, because it's very exciting. So even though I understand that you want to go into Bitcoin and Ether, for what I fully understand, keep a few RealT tokens just to play around with
I
it and
mean,
see what can be done.
no, the
You
truth
know,
is after once everything is set up, Scott, I will show you how to do both. Stay in RealT and buy your Bitcoin without having to leave anyone behind. And that's really the beauty of RealT
absolutely.
token, is stability of being able to borrow without having to worry about fluctuation tomorrow, while you could go do your more risky
Aggressive, yeah, risky
aggressive
investments.
investment.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the idea. You see, okay, we mentioned some of the apps, and we mentioned borrowing against a token. People do it, but the fluctuation makes it nerve-wracking, or they're flash loans. With a stable collateral, you'll use it as a collateral. You'll keep your token that will bring you an income.
That will pay for the interest, or most of the interest of your loan.
And then you can buy your risk investments with it. But look, what we have developed like this week is the reinvestment property. And that is something that was asked by the community. And the concept behind it is very simple. Your rent, when you receive it, instead of receiving it in USDC or in cash, it goes directly into a reinvestment into the tokens of another property that also is a income earning property. So you compound your income automatically. These are things that you do just at the push of a button. Well, if you want, and with as little as $50 or with as much as anything you want, but try to do that on the real markets with real estate. It takes years and years, decades of growth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I fully intend to get back into RealT in 2022 at a higher position than I am now. So definitely no worries there. I'm very keen on RealT. But yeah, no, that's amazing. Being able to reinvest, being able to lend, and you're definitely developing tons and tons of features for people to take advantage of with RealT. So I think that's really, really awesome. Is there anything else that we should expect to see, any big updates coming in the next 6 months to a year that we should be looking out for RealT?
Scott, we're in DeFi. There's yesterday, today, tomorrow. You know, that tomorrow is already far. To plan until tomorrow is already quite something. Every day changes.
There's quite a few things in the roadmap for the next 6 months that are quite exciting. RealT is going through an expansion that is enjoyable. We're growing the team, so you will see our team expand quite a bit in the next few months, as well as some integration, some governance that are going to be introduced, and different aspect of RealT that will grow in conjunction with the space.
Awesome.
So things will move.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you mentioned how like once a year you will have someone go and reevaluate properties. How does that work exactly?
So it's a very simple process, but a very tedious process at the same time. Third-party appraiser will go to the house, and are going to the houses and properties now, and are going through all the property appraisal points that they need to go through to be able to give us an evaluation of the house and how much the house is worth compared to the market of today. It just takes a long time, and especially now with COVID, even longer, as people don't want stranger in their dwellings.
Yeah, but you have to take into consideration the neighborhood, the renovations, the state of the property outside and inside. And going inside today, and the rent, obviously the rent hasn't increased. Is it being paid? Is it Section 8? Is it not? But going inside the properties today is nearly impossible. So as much as we have the evaluators going right now. It's much slower than we thought, and that's not something that we can control. This is also part of doing business.
Yeah,
But
yeah, no, that makes sense.
But every time that there is an appraisal coming out on a property, it will affect the price of the token. It will go up or down depending on the market. Real estate on a long-term trend usually tends to go up, but there could be some years with corrections. So that will affect the price of the token and will trigger as well some events that you will see reflected in some of the governance that we have been talking about.
Oh, you're teasing,
Awesome.
Remy. You're teasing here. Okay, yeah, he's okay. That's caught as an invitation to invite us again in the near future to speak about that.
Yeah, no, we could definitely follow up in the future and see how everything is has progressed. So where can everyone go to learn more about this, and where can they follow RealT, and where can they follow you guys?
RealT.co. We are on Discord, we are on Telegram, and on Twitter.
Awesome.
Our Telegram community is active and very helpful. Don't hesitate to join. If you have questions, we try to answer most of them on the website as well. We need to update it regularly because it moves so fast. But otherwise, Discord, Telegram, very active, and you'll find a wealth of people, a wealth of information there, and people willing to help.
As well as our Twitter.
Perfect. And my last question here, we briefly talked about this, but I'd like to hear it from you guys. Where do you feel that RealT fits in with other similar projects, and or how is RealT uniquely different, or possibly the only one in the space who's really doing this?
So we're seeing some projects coming. Some of them are just pure scams. Some of them even forget to take out our name out of their terms and condition. Thankfully, those don't go very far. There is some other projects that are coming that are very solid and are looking great, and we're welcoming them in the space. Most of them, if not all of them, are taking a very different direction than RealT and are very complementary in helping the asset tokenization space moving forward.
The reality is that the more people do it, the more liquid the market will be. Eventually, there will be swaps between these type of tokens, between people. It's still far in the future, but it will happen. Still today, as of today, most people in the space are trying to fund projects to come, or large hotels, glamorous penthouses, and stuff like that. We decided to go for the yield approach. It's a question of business decisions.
Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the projects that I found were promises and they weren't selling a finished product. So I highly recommend RealT. I've used it for a long time. I haven't found anything else that is quite on the same level or easily accessible for a small investor. So I highly recommend it. Definitely recommend that people check it out. You can see all of my reports in the past of tracking the rent and stuff. So it has been very reliable, sustainable, and legitimate. And again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge and just teaching people about tokenization and what real estate could look like in the future and is progressing to become.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll have you guys on again to talk about how things have progressed in the future.
Absolutely. We look forward to that. Take care, Scott.
Awesome.
Bye.